Perhaps you've seen something like this on your monthly payslip, but do you know what it is? And do you even have to be paying it? Hey everyone, and welcome to The Savvy Squaddy. In this video, I'll be going through service days pay giving, and I'll be sharing some thoughts on how this and other subs are implemented. Now, for those of you who actually check your payslip, then you might see something like this in the deductions section, and perhaps many of you have wondered what it is. So let's start there. What is the service days pay giving? Well, it was introduced in 1964, and some of you may know it as the Days Pay Scheme. It's a way for collecting donations to corps or regimental charities and associations from soldiers and officers. Important to note, this is not the same as PRI or company subs. JPA takes out the required amount each month before your income tax is calculated. This is because donating to a charity via a payroll giving scheme is a form of tax relief. In very simple terms, it's a charity donation you can do each month. But how much do you donate? Well, this does depend on your corps or regiment, but for most junior soldiers, it's around 120% of 1 day's gross pay. So, a full day's pay plus a little bit extra. This is then divided in 12 for an equal donation each month. As your pay increases, whether through promotion, a pay award, or just by increasing an increment level, so too will the donation. Officers and seniors tend to pay a bit more though. This is because a portion of their donation goes towards their messes. So they pay more as not to eat into the amount that goes towards the benevolence fund, etc. As per regs though, subscriptions are not to exceed the equivalent of 2.5 days gross pay a year for each service personnel. So regardless of rank, you should never donate more than 250% of 1 day's gross pay per year. And while we have this page up, let's answer the question many of you have in your mind. Do I actually have to pay this? Well, just in this short section alone, voluntary is mentioned 5 times, including the heading. Service days pay giving is a charitable donation. It is not mandatory like some old crusty farts like to think. Literally, on the first line, all service personnel may subscribe voluntarily to a corps regimental charity association as part of the service days pay giving. I'll explain later on in this video how you can opt out if you wish, although I do hope by the end of it you'll understand the benefit and the value it offers and choose to continue paying it. If you hadn't have guessed from that, I am a member of this scheme for my corps. I donate each and every month and have done for the last 10 years. However, it's only within the last few years have I actually come to understand its voluntary nature and what the money actually goes towards, which I will cover in a bit. Perhaps some of you can relate to this. It was day 1 of regimental duty, fresh out of training. I was sitting in the clerk's office doing my arrivals and was presented another piece of paper to sign. When I asked what it was, I was given a very loose answer and was told if I didn't sign it, I would have to go in front of the RSM and explain why I didn't want to. Now, as a brand new bod, going in front of the RSM on week 1 wasn't really on my to-do list, so I signed it. And you know what? In hindsight, I'm glad I did. Because whilst I was resentful at being coerced into paying this and being clueless of where that money actually was going, that all changed when I came to understand the scheme and learn of the values and positive impact it has on people's lives. And via my donation, I've contributed towards that. But here lies the issue: education. A lot of people are not informed correctly of this scheme. Instead, they are pressured into paying it via implied or inferred threats of discipline, similar to how PRI and company subs operate in some units. I'm sure many of us have seen the occasional linked WhatsApp messages on this subject. But this then builds up resentment towards these schemes and it creates negative sentiment around them. People are not told the benefits that these schemes offer, but instead are just told to pay them. So it's no wonder why people are reluctant to subscribe. Full disclosure, I currently don't pay into my unit's PRI fund. Not because I don't agree with it and what it offers, on the contrary, I do, but because I wasn't happy with how certain bits of the PRI charter were written. It implied that it was mandatory, when it's not. I raised these issues with the RSM and we came to a happy middle ground, and once the changes have been made, I'll start paying into it. More often than not, the amount of money is not the issue, because let's be honest, it's not really that much. But that's not the point. That is not why people are so reluctant to contribute. It's because the negative stigma that has been attached to these schemes due to years of poor implementation, communication and education. When we understand the purpose and benefits of these schemes, we're more likely to chip in willingly. So let's go over some of those benefits. If we look back at the service days pay giving section in regs, it says that a minimum of half the income is devoted to the benevolent assistance of regular and reserve personnel, veterans and their dependents in need. So half of your monthly contribution goes towards helping people in need who are linked to the regiment or corps, and one day that might be you. The other half goes towards a bunch of other things that you probably benefit from but don't even realise. For example, in the RLC, the money goes towards the Benevolent Grant Scheme, the Medical Discharge Grant Scheme, the Off-Duty Accident, Death or Injury Grant Scheme, Sports, Adventure Training and Battlefield Studies, the Sustainer Magazine, the Corps of Drums, the RLC Museum and Esprit de Corps. Now, the cynics will say it's a waste. The money lines the pockets of the elite. None of it goes to helping anyone. The officers take it all for their fancy mess parties. I've never had any money out of it, and whatever other bullshit they can come up with because they actually haven't taken the time to educate themselves. However, the accounts and annual returns of charities are public information, so we can actually see how much money comes in, what assets are held, what money goes out, and where. If you're interested, get the registered charity number, type it in on the Gov website, and the page pops up. You can then download their reports and look for yourself, or just speak to your regimental accountant. Personally, I think more should be done in most units to highlight where the money goes. People will then be able to see the value in their contributions. The Royal Engineers Association website does a really good job of this, and I think more should follow suit. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am in the RLC and have been for the last 5 years or so, and the grass is greener. I'm going to highlight a few points from the RLC accounts and annual returns for the year ending in 2022 to give you an idea of what the service days pay giving and the wider fund actually does. Your own regimental or corps association will be different, and I'm not about to go into the financials of every single one. So, the year ending in 2022, via the Service Days Pay Giving Scheme, £1,083,687 was added to the RLC Association Trust Fund. The fund also does have other sources of income, but this scheme accounts for over a third of it. In 2022, total income was £3,029,622. Let's have a look at a few examples of where this money actually went in relation to the RLC. Sports and Adventure Training. Grants totalling £448,000 were made to support these in 2022. Think about it. When you go on AT and the personal contribution is pretty small, where do you think that money comes from to pay for those activities? Do you really think the ski resort in France is going to give you a massive discount because you're military? Of course not. Most of these trips are funded through grants such as this, and also from the sports lottery for those of you who might do that as well. And if you're watching and in the RLC, you may or may not be aware of the Shared Adventure Training Lodge in the Lake District that the Corps spends around £51,000 a year on. My trade was up there last year and I didn't have to pay a penny for the whole week I was there. Those of you in other corps or regiments, there may be something similar on offer for you guys, but you'll have to inquire about that yourself. But for those of you in the RLC, you can book this and utilise it. Moving on to benevolence grants. For the RLC in 2022, over 1,000 people were supported, with just under 50% being serving RLC soldiers, the rest being those from the forming corps. A total of £843,000 was awarded in welfare and benevolent grants. This might be something you may never need, but you'll be thankful if you do. Your contributions to this scheme help a lot of people. Then there is the Respite Holiday Scheme. Due to the cost of living and many families being unable to go on holiday, the RLC spent £25,000 in 2022 on 2 holiday parks, one north and one south. This gave 40 families a holiday that year, which they would have otherwise not had. And they ran it again in 2023, and I hope they're still running it now. Speak to your chain of command if you think you or someone you know might benefit from this. And lastly, in the RLC there are some unique benefits to being a member of the Service Days Pay Scheme, which in 2022 around 70% of personnel were. These benefits include up to £5,000 for an accidental death or injury whilst off duty. 3 of these payments were made that year. There is also a medical discharge grant scheme which paid out £47,420 to 97 eligible soldiers, which helped with their return to civvy life. If you are not a member of the scheme, you don't receive these benefits. And those are just a few examples of how the RLC Association spends its money. Whilst the amounts will be different due to the size and uptake, the majority of regiment/corps associations in the Army operate the same way and offer the same benefits. I think for the Navy and the RAF, your donations go into your respective service charities. For the Army, that's not the case. However, in 2022, the RLC did donate £100,000 to the Army Benevolent Fund. Hopefully, now you can see the day and a bit of pay that you contribute each year goes towards much more than just a stable belt and a regimental branded PT top that you wear for CO's PT. You benefit from this scheme in many different ways that you may not even be aware of. My trade recently had its annual seminar. Part of that event is a sit-down, all poshed up dinner in the seniors mess. A personal contribution is required to fund this, but thanks to the association, we were given a set amount for the event, which lowered the cost on all of those attending. I have benefited from this fund multiple times, and so do most of you watching. But it is voluntary, and perhaps you still want to cancel your contribution. How do you go about doing that? Well, by using the same form you signed up to it with, JPA E014. Here is the one taken from the ROC website, but you can just go to your HR department or speak to your regimental accountant and they'll be able to help you. Fill in your personal details, and then in part 2 draw a line through paragraph 1 and fill in the dates. Note the notes at the bottom. Fill in part 3. If you're unsure of anything, then speak to your HR. And that's it. Hand it over and it should be dealt with. Now, if someone tells you that you need to go and speak to the RSM or write a letter asking permission to cancel, they are chatting shit. The scheme is voluntary. The RSM has absolutely no power or say in your decision to stop paying. It's none of their business. It's a charitable donation. If you're being forced to do it, then it sort of defeats the purpose. More often than not, the threat of having to go to the RSM to explain why you want to cancel is enough to deter people, and that's why it's being used. If you do end up in front of them, then they'll ask you why you want to stop and try and sell you on the benefits, but that's all they can do. But the point is, you shouldn't end up in front of them in the first place. If the individual is being difficult, then just quote regs to them and politely tell them to do their job and to stop creating unnecessary processes which creates more work for everyone. Although I'm hoping that after this video you can see what the contributions actually do and you decide to continue to pay or even start if you don't currently donate. It's so much more than just another deduction on your payslip. You may never have to rely on the benevolent fund, but over the course of your career, thousands of people do. Such as a grant for travel and other expenses for a young family whose baby was born prematurely and needed specialist care, to help fund unforeseen in-country expenses that a young Commonwealth soldier experienced when they went back home due to their brother being killed, or a grant being made to help with home disability adaptations due to a young senior NCO being diagnosed with a debilitating terminal illness. Without this scheme, these people would not have received the support they did, and your donations via the scheme contribute to the aid they and many others receive. We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. What ways have you benefited from the scheme? Have I convinced you to keep on paying? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you just saw, please hit the subscribe button up there, and if you want to see some more videos, click over there. See you soon.